Most traders miss this when marking supply and demand zones, and it's costing them profitable trades. Today, I will show you strong highs and strong lows, a concept you need to know. Before we can start taking a look at our next supply and demand zone type, we need to learn about something called strong highs and strong lows, because these types of supply and demand zones only appears at strong highs and strong lows. And before we can learn about strong highs and strong lows, we need to learn about a concept called break of structure. And in this video, I will just keep this very short and sweet. But if you want to learn more deeply about break of structure and something called change of character and market structure in general, this right here is actually a market structure concept, but luckily I do have a full course about that, and I will make sure to link that course both in the video card as well as the description. But in very simple terms, a break of structure occurs when the price breaks to a new high in an uptrend. So for example, right here, you can see that the price pushes to a new high in an uptrend. So this is a break of structure. Another example of a break of structure is right here. This is a break of structure because this is where the price pushes to a new high. So in an uptrend, a break of structure is when the price pushes to a new high, but the opposite is true in the downtrend. In the downtrend, a break of structure is when the price pushes to a new low. So this right here is a break of structure. Once again, this right here is a break of structure, and so on and so on. And strong highs and lows, make sure to really pay attention. Strong highs and lows comes from the point that caused the break of structure. So all of these purple points right here are strong highs and lows. So for example, this one right here is a strong low, right? And this one right here is also a strong low. We can write SL. This right here is a strong high. Why? Because this is the high that caused the break of structure. This right here is also a strong high. Why? Because this is a high that caused the break of structure, and so on and so on. And actually for this course, this is all you need to know. A strong low causes a break of structure to the upside. A strong high causes a break of structure to the downside. But right, so now let's take a look at the strong low demand zone on a real life chart. And I can actually also just mention that it doesn't matter if you are, day trading and looking at maybe a 5-minute chart or a 50-minute chart, or if you are swing trading and are looking at 1 hour or daily charts. The concepts covered in this video can be found on all asset types and all time frames. What you do want to make sure of, however, is that you are trading something with sufficient liquidity. So I once again recommend that you check out my liquidity course. It will be in the video card as well as the description. But here, to identify the strong low demand zone, we first of all need to understand the trend of the chart. And if you are just looking at this chart, is this chart in an uptrend or a downtrend? Well, hopefully you can pretty clearly see that we are in an uptrend, right? You can see we have an impulsive move right here. The price pulls back. We see another massive move to the upside. The price pulls back a little bit. We see a move to the upside. The price goes back. Then we fail to print a new high right here, and the price once again starts to pull back. And now, an exercise you can do right now is to try to find the break of structures on this chart. Remember, a break of structure is when the price breaks to a new high in an uptrend. So this right here is a break of structure. Once again, when we break above this high right here, this is yet another break of structure. However, last but not least, is this a break of structure or not? Well, if you look closely, you can see that at this point, the price actually failed to break to a new high. So this is actually not a break of structure. But right, so now then, you know that the strong lows comes from the moves that causes the break of structure. So for example, right here, we have a strong low, right? Because this right here was a move that caused a break of structure. And once again, this one is a bit harder to, realize, which of these points is the actual low. But once again, this was a point that caused a break of structure. So we still have to see this as a strong low. However, and this is very key, it's not enough for for us to have a strong low to consider it a strong low demand zone, because we also need to see a strong move to the upside. So in this example, you can see that this strong low right here, from this low, we actually saw a very nice move towards the upside. We had multiple strong and green candles, and we saw a nice move. For the strong low demand zones, you don't have to be as, as restrictive as with the aggressive demand zone. So you don't have to have momentum candles and you don't have to see engulfing candles, but in general, you still want to see a strong move in order to draw out your demand zone. If you, for example, look at this strong low right here and look at the following move, which we can see right here, this is definitely, at least in my personal opinion, not a strong enough move to draw out your demand zone. But as I have mentioned earlier, these are just my rules for supply and demand, and all traders will have slightly different rules and slightly different, ways to handle both aggressive and strong low demand zones. But this is how I do it. So in this case, once again, we draw out a demand zone that looks something like this. We draw it to the right, and you can see that the price pushed up. We pushed up even higher. We failed to break a new high, but then eventually the price came down to this demand zone, and this was where we saw a massive explosion to the upside. And if you traded this strong low demand, you could have locked in some nice profit. All right, so now let's shift the attention and take a look at the strong high supply zone. The first thing we need to do once again is to identify if we are in a downtrend or uptrend. In my opinion, this chart right here is much harder to analyze than the previous chart. But what you hopefully can notice is that at least this part right here are a pretty clear, downtrend, right? So two highs we're interested in analyzing is this high right here and this high right here. Let's start by focusing on this high. Is this high right here a strong high or a weak high? Well, remember, in order for it to be a strong high, we need to break the previous low. And in this case, you can actually see that the previous low comes from this point right here. So from this high, we actually failed to break the previous low. So this right here was actually not a strong high. This right here was a weak high. We can write weak high right there. However, the next move you can clearly see, clearly breaks the low right there. So this right here is a strong high. And since we're seeing a strong high, this might be a point where we see a strong high supply zone. But remember, and this is super important, in order to have a strong high supply zone, it's not enough to have a strong high, but we also need to see a strong move to the downside. And if you look at this chart, we can actually see that after this strong high appeared, you can see that we had a massive move to the downside. And remember from earlier in the course, in order to see selling pressure this strong, we need to have lots of more supply than demand. This supply can either come from a supply shift, like we talked about earlier, and in real markets, this can be, for example, large institutions stepping in and selling a lot. Or it can sometimes it can be new information, like a news event or something like that, that causes the supply shift. And remember, after the supply shifts, the price once again seeks the equilibrium level and the price adjusts. And in order to that, when it comes to supply shifts, the price need to adjust to the downside. So once again, in this case, we mark up our supply area like something like this. We can see that the price went down here. We saw a move towards the upside. And then right here, once the price reached the supply, we saw a strong move to the downside. Once again, right here, we saw some move to the downside. And last but not least, the price right here actually tried to break above the supply area. But once again, the bears took control and we saw tons of selling pressure coming in to the market. Alright, so this video was actually just a very short clip from our full supply and demand trading course right here on YouTube. To watch the full course, simply click or tap on the screen right here. I hope I will see you all over there very, very soon.